Hello, this is Vanks. This is the Business Tier 6 Hyjal Strategy Review video. Similar to the Black Temple review video, we're going to be referring to our spreadsheet that we've created to outline our strategies and assignments. The main difference here is that the Hyjal tab of this sheet also includes each of the trash waves. So in this we'll cover all of the bosses, primarily DPS and healing assignments, and then we'll throw in our keywords for validating that you've watched the content and understand what the bosses do, where to stand, and all that. So the big thing here with each of the trash waves that come in, we've got some notes in here that what we consider to be like a big wave where the prop paladin would take a lot of extra damage, or waves where there are extra necromancers, more than 2 A-bombs where we might want to shackle, gargoyles that may spawn in the camp versus up front for the horde camp bosses. And here we can also see, at least in the Alliance camp, when we run in, or where the mobs run in is down this path here, we're going to have all of the tanks and melee DPS just around the corner here. The prop pally will drop his consecrate here as he comes around the corner a little bit early, and then we'll all line of sight. Range will be back here on the right, so that way all mobs will line of sight and come around here and bunch up, and will be in the paladin's consecrate. Otherwise, people will get threat, they'll get moved around a bunch, and the bear tank and warrior tank will kind of have to bounce back and forth to try to pick them up, and people just take extra damage. So the first boss is Rage Winterchill. This is the primary fight where you would use your PvP trinket. After we do the first alliance waves of trash, then the boss is going to run down through here. For all the bosses, we're going to have a hunter misdirect, and the main tank will kind of already be in the position where the boss needs to be tanked. So for Winterchill, that would be right in the middle here. And then everybody just generally needs to spread out. He does a Death and Decay that he will channel for 10 seconds. That will be a 20-yard range. So here on the right side you can see the kind of his main 3 abilities, or at least Death and Decay, Frostbolt, and then also his Frost Nova that he'll do. So Death and Decay, you pretty much just need to make sure you run out of it. Melee, you're going to take a bunch of extra damage if they get frozen. So if the boss does a Frost Nova and Death and Decay combo, you'll want to be using your PvP trinket. If you get Frost bolted and get put into the ice block, you'll still take the initial damage, but you only take the ticking damage for 2.5k per second if you're still in the ice block. So you can hopefully negate your death by using your PvP trinket at the right time. So again, the format of these sheets is that the quick info here is on the left, followed by lust timings, healing assignments, tank assignments, and any extra details that you might want to further understand for the boss is going to be on the right side, and any screenshots of their abilities or any useful items will be on the right there as well. So the big things for healing is that, again, melee are going to be taking a lot of Death and Decay, especially if there's a Frost Nova around the same time, so a timely Mass Dispel helps out a lot with that. Otherwise, the boss is kind of a tank and spank. He's not attacking while he's casting, he's not attacking while he's channeling, so for the most part, as long as you run out of Death and Decay, you should be a free kill. We'll see here in this first video just a quick show that after that last trash pack, we're going to kind of run down. Everybody's going to spread out. I'm going to be towards the middle, get the MD. Speed it up a little here. He's gonna run down. Already ice bolted somebody. You can see him in the frost block, ice block. I get ripped. He'll do it. He saw his frost over there real quick. But really, he's just casting his frostbolt on people. Here's Death and Decay over here on the side. So you can see it's a very large area. You know, NPCs are dying all the way over here. It's hitting this area. So, you know, large spaces are going to be, you know, affected by Death and Decay, and you'll have to move out of it. So, again, that's really the fight. The first keyword for verification is going to be Honky Taunt. That was my name on the PTR. Next boss is Anetheron. So we fight this boss also in the Alliance camp. So first two bosses, Alliance camp. Second two bosses, Horde camp. And then Archimonde's down by the tree. So for this boss, similarly, he's going to be tanked in the middle. And we've got healers spread out. Everybody generally just needs to be spread out around where your shaman is. But healers need to be spread out because the boss does this Carrion Swarm, which is this kind of frontal cone here that he'll cast on somebody. That person gets a 15-second debuff that reduces the healing that they do for 15 seconds. He'll also randomly sheep various members of the raid. He has a vampiric aura on himself, which heals him for damage that he does. So a rogue would use wound poison, or an arms warrior would apply a mortal strike to reduce that. At various times during the fight, he's going to drop an infernal on somebody. That person will get a raid marker on their head, and it will fall on them. It will stun them. It will do some damage that won't kill you necessarily, but then they have this immolation, which is just a hellfire around it that hits for a pretty large amount of damage. Our prot pally will be picking these up. We'll end up killing them just because they're more or less annoying and don't have enough health to really justify not killing them. So the first one, we'll pick it up. Our prot pally will call for when to kill it. We should really only get 2 per fight, so, you know, if the call is that the boss is low enough that we just focus on the boss instead of kill the second one, then we'll do that, and it should despawn at the end. We were going to just have our prot pally wear fire resistance and tank both of them to focus DPS on the boss, but the fight's really all not that hard, so we're just going to turn and kill it. There's some visuals here on Carrion Swarm and kind of the idea there. Since it only affects healing done, really it's just the healers that got to be split there. So we have some loose positioning here that are tied to the circles here, just to make sure that 2 or even 3 healers don't get hit by the swarm at the same time, and we don't have enough damage output to keep up. The Carrion Swarm does do damage, so, you know, that's going to heal him, so that's why everybody else wants to spread out. Be best if melee are kind of split into 2 small groups behind him as well. Really the big thing here is to know when to swap to the Infernal, and if you get the Infernal, you get marked a little bit ahead of time, and so you can run it out kind of proactively before it even spawns. I believe here, I'll zoom this up as well, and then you guys can always slow it down. So there's Carrion Swarm directly at me. So there's one of the Infernos spawning, calling for people to move away from it. And in this case, he's just going to tank it there. Just range will be able to reach it. Obviously, the fight's sped up, but the boss is already at 50% here. So really it's just DPS the boss. When we call for a swap on one of the infernals, then we'll swap to it. After this, we'll talk to Jaina, and we'll run the opposite direction of where all this initial trash comes in, and we'll move to the Horde camp. I'll show that here. Run up this path, and then once we get over to the Horde camp, then we'll start the trash for Kaz'rogal. In the spreadsheet, there are these little trash cans built in. Behind here, there's actually like a link to the cell for the trash. So if you are following and using the spreadsheet as we go through Hyjal and you know, staying on the boss and then switching back up to trash, you can quickly hit that to kind of go back to this first cell where the trash is kind of within view. So the next boss is Kaz'rogal. This boss, this is the one where he applies the mark of Kaz'rogal to people, and they'll get 600 mana drained every second for 5 seconds, so it's 3,000 mana. So if, like, essentially the raid spreads out, because if you don't have that mana, then you explode and you do 10 to 11k shadow damage to yourself and everybody around you. It is resistible and partially resistible, so if you were to, you know, play a little risky and put on a little bit of shadow resist gear, or the instruction for healers is going to be to like power word shield people who are at very low mana that might explode when they get the next mark. You know, that can, you know, either wearing the shadow resist or that smart shielding can kind of save you from dying. But everybody's generally just going to be spread out by where their shamans are. And then if you are going to get the mark and not have enough mana, or a later tick will take you down to 0 mana, causing you to explode, then you need to run away from the group so that you don't explode and kill other people, because there's a chance that you'll partial resist and they'll not, and they'll die. And really, if you're going to be the one to die, you should just be running out and not affecting anybody else. Each class does have kind of a cheesy way to either negate the mark or get mana back. So druids can shift to like bear forms, so they don't have a mana bar, so they're not applied. Pallies can bubble out of it, mages can ice block, and hunters and warlocks can have their ways to get extra MP5. For anybody within kind of a close or 15-yard range of the boss, which for the most part is just going to be the tanks and the melee, he is going to do a war stomp. He'll randomly apply cripple to people every once in a while. Those melee that get it, we can use Hands of Freedom on them to remove it, because it does reduce their increased time between attacks and reduces strength by 75%. And then the important thing for the melee or anybody else that might be in front of the boss is he does a cleave only when there is a player that is there that can be cleaved. So if I'm taking the boss, he'll only cleave if there is another player there in the front. So the basic kind of big points here, again, if you're going to die, run out, you can wear your shadow resist as for a chance to resist the marks. The mark, not only the explosion damage, but also the application of the mark can be resisted. So there's some opportunity there for, even if you just use your neck or like the cape once we have it crafted with the shadow resist enchant on it, and then we get the priest raid shadow resistance buff, that's enough to where you've got a low chance to resist, but it's still there and it can still save you or allow you to not have to use a mana pot or dark rune. There's a note here. Generally, you just have to watch your mana, but there are notes here about like using mana regen consumables. It's also important for people to have dark runes if they are going to have problems with about a 2 to 2.5 minute fight. Again, this is one where, and I'll show in the video as well, like he runs far from over here, and we want to get Thrall engaged because he adds to our damage. So we're going to be pulling him, as he runs in here, going to get an MD, and tank is going to be standing kind of over by where Thrall is, so the Thrall and kind of his cronies here get engaged. So the video here, we can see him running in. We quickly learned here that I couldn't get a misdirect unless I was off of my mount. So you can see here that, like, we had issues with the misdirect, and he already had started the fight. So, like, he was already going to start his applications of his mark after a certain period of time, and we hadn't even really engaged him. So that was a pretty scuffed pull, and in general, we didn't really have problems with this boss. The damage output's pretty minimal. Again, it's really just like the war stomp and the tank taking damage. So even if you look at raid frames here or look at any reference logs that we'll share, and this is again from our guild run on the PTR, all of these videos are, but the overall damage output during this fight's low enough to where healers could even wand and shit like that. So the second keyword for verification is Harry Candy. That was the name of Jelly's druid on the PTR. The next fight is Azgalor. So this is the second fight in the Horde camp. This fight we'll be tanking him pretty much in the same position, and we're all just going to kind of spread around him. He does a rain of fire that can be applied to a random target within 30 yards. So it's really important that you're always casting from max range. Otherwise, you have a chance to have the rain of fire casted on you, and it's like a rain of fire plus if you stand in it for more than 2 seconds, which is fairly easy given the size of it. You also get this unquenchable flames debuff, which deals 1250 fire damage every second for 5 seconds. So again, avoidable damage as long as you're outside of that 30-yard range. But it is, if multiple people are getting hit by that, it's can increase the overall rate damage fairly tremendously. So the boss has this doom mechanic where he'll cast it on a random target every 45 seconds, and after 20 seconds they die and spawn a lesser doom guard. That doom guard is going to be tanked by our prop paladin, who will be standing outside of the group here. So until the first one spawns, he's going to be engaged with the boss. Once that one spawns, he's going to grab it and take it back here, where he's going to engage some of the other Tauren camp NPCs that will kind of attack it. And so those Doom Guards have a few abilities here that make them lethal when there are multiple attacking the Paladin. Because if he gets Chain War Stomped, then and has like an unlucky thrash, then he can just take spike damage, and if he's stunned, not be able to, pretty much all avoidance is cut away at that point. So after or with 2, or really what we saw was around the 3rd, then it's kind of untenable. We essentially needed to kill them, but the boss was pretty much dead at that point. So we're likely just going to kill and turn the first one, or turn and kill the first one rather, and then leave the others up, since the 3rd one was kind of that threshold where it became problematic. So we'll have warlocks, similar to the Gorfiend fight. We're going to have warlocks create soul stones, and anybody that gets Doom that's a healer, we'll have them put the soul stone on that player, so that after they die, spawning the Doom Guard, then they can soulstone up. So this is where the prop paladin's going to be. He'll be able to pick up the first one and pull it out there, but if later you get Doom, you immediately have to run over to where he is. He's not going to be moving around and trying to pick it up, unless that first one is dead and he's free. But if you get the Doom debuff, you're going to die within 20 seconds. You need to use that time to get over to a spot where the paladin can pick it up easily. He's not going to be able to taunt it. Luckily they are demons, so he can use exorcism, but it's more important that those are just kind of out of the way and being handled away from the raid group. There are the positioning here shows melee standing on this orange circle and kind of wiggling around the backside of the boss, with the tank up front wiggling back and forth. This is because the Rain of Fire can be put onto the main tank or any of the melee, obviously because they're within that 30-yard range. So we're frequently going to have to either move the boss back and forth, similar to like the Grohl Cave-In, or what we're also going to do is going to be pulling. There's like a hill here that we'll see in the video as well. We'll be pulling him kind of up the hill. The Rain of Fire tends to be big enough to where you can get caught in a pinch and not really have enough room to move without, really the ability to get out of it. He also does this Howl of Azgalor every 15 seconds. It comes off cooldown, and he can use it to silence the entire raid for 5 seconds. This is like zone wide. You can't outrange it, but you can resist it. So again, if you want to wear a piece of shadow resistance to gamble and see if you can resist that silence, you get 5 seconds of cast time open back up for you. And that's really the fight. So let's switch over to this one. So got the misdirect properly here, so I'm going to run it in. You'll see that I get kind of killed here and barely will pick it up, but I'll get some better views once I get battle resed. Alright, a soulstone. So you can see there, Rain of Fire, pretty large area. Barely's moving it, up the hill, as he is naturally going to be casting it on either him or the melee. Migos gets the, or on the PTR was actually being kind of weird because it was showing that somebody else was getting it. But, a player is getting Doom, and Inri, or our prop pally, is in the back tanking those Doom guards back here. So these two tents here are kind of where those Taurens are at, but that area back there is where he's going to be. So if you look at the positioning, we're moving him up this direction. So in this case, all these players naturally need to inch forward a little bit as they get kind of out of range. So really just the handling of the Doom Guards and not standing in rain of fire is the entire fight. The last fight in Hyjal is Archimonde. After we kill Azgalor, you run down the path and we'll pick up this item that I've got linked here, Tears of the Goddess. We grab that from Tyrande here. You need to make sure you have this on your bar. It's a slow fall item that gives you a slow fall effect for a short period of time. So the big thing is here, when the boss uses Air Burst, we're all going to be spread out, but when the boss uses Air Burst, that person and any players around them are going to get tossed in the air, and if you don't use the item, you die. So the slow fall only lasts for about 2 seconds, so it's important that you don't use it when you're at the peak. You use it as you're falling down. So you can use it before you get in combat with the boss, so you can get kind of an idea. But overall, for positioning on this fight, we run in from the side here, and we'll have some positioning pretty much for people to be some on like the north side, some on the south side, and some on the east side. This map here shows northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast, but generally some people can wiggle over here, but it's important to be within range of dispellers, so that, or decursors, so that they can decurse this grip of the Legion curse that the boss will apply. So positioning is important here. We'll update these assignments based on the raid group and the comp and the healers. So just make sure that you are paying attention to that and know where you need to go. Generally, we're going to assign it, as you can see here, kind of like a not worrying about the position far away, but making sure that we have healers split around, and also shaman dropping tremors for each group. The boss he lays this doom fire on the ground, which you can see here on the right. It's gonna chase somebody, so if you get it, you need to run directly away from the boss, because what ends up happening is he casts this enough to where if you don't run it straight away, you are going to consume a lot of the area that we have around like 40-yard range around the boss in a circle with that fire. And ultimately, when he fears, people are going to get put into the fire or will touch the fire, and they get a pretty nasty debuff that applies, like, hits some damage at first here for a little bit, and then it'll do 2400 fire damage every 3 seconds, and it's reduced by 150 per tick. So you're gonna take a significant amount of damage if you get put into the Doomfire, or if you get feared into the Doomfire. So it's important that when you get it, you immediately run away, and you are not standing near it, and you're always near your shaman and their tremor totem, or you have an alternate method to break the fear, whether you're undead or whether you use your PvP trinket. It is highly suggested that you use a PvP trinket, just because this fight is entirely survival based, because when somebody dies, the boss gets this soul charge and they can stack. So, the boss essentially gets an extra ability when somebody dies. Then he's going to use that ability randomly within the next 6 seconds or something like that. And if he kills somebody else with it, then he'll get another charge. So it kind of has this, tumbling effect of somebody dies due to something stupid like not using their Tears of the Goddess at the right time, falling from airburst, and the boss gets an extra something, and then somebody else dies, and it just goes downhill pretty quickly. So really the big thing is like stay near your shaman, watch out for the fire, use a little bit of extra stam gear if your health is low. Make sure you know and are familiar with how long the Tears of the Goddess shit lasts. If you're a class that has slow fall, you can also kind of cheese the boss by using a slow fall, like while you're at the peak of your kind of air time from airburst, because he won't fear while people are airborne from the airburst effect. Again, it's really important that you spread out, because how it works is that somebody will get airburst, and if you're if you're near that player, you're also going to get booped up into the air. So this entire fight is a race to get the boss down to 10%, and at that point, all of these wisps will join the fight, and he'll just start to use this Finger of Death ability and Hand of Death when there are these wisps in place and he's like towards the end of the fight. So again, survival fight, don't die. We'll have priests use Fear Ward. Typically, like what we saw was that he didn't do a fear for the first some 30-40 seconds, so we might, based on how our comp looks, and if we have 4 or 5 shamans, we might have the shaman be in whatever group to provide totems for our casters, but then we might swap him to the healer group, so that we make sure the healers have a tremor, and then we'll kind of hand select who is getting fear wards, including the tank. There's a comment here, but we'll be marking the shaman so you guys know where your totems are going to be. And pretty much right when we engage the boss, we're going to lust. You'll see here in the video that we all kind of run in together, and it's important to let the main tank run in first, and kind of establish threat, because the hunters aren't going to be able to run in and immediately misdirect, so melee need to be careful. So here's us running in to engage. So I'll point out the the fire here, the fears, the air burst. I won't or shouldn't get air bursted because the tank can't. But here is the fire. You can see here that's chasing somebody, and they move out of the way. And it can change. So that's where it's making a weird trail. After he does it 1 or 2 more times, then again the previous ones will disappear. So it's really just important to make sure that you're running it away. You're making sure that you / range 10 to stay away from other players, and that you're near your tremors or have a fear ward. So you should see me probably get feared here. I do get the debuff, so I'm taking a lot of extra damage here, but what's important is to stay away from the fire, because a tremor is only going to tick once every couple seconds, so there I could have ran into the unquenchable flames, or into the fire, and gotten unquenchable flames again, and that would have refreshed my debuff, and I would have started taking larger periodic fire damage. So here the boss is below 10%. He's starting to use his Finger of Death ability on all these wisps, and we pretty much just finish him off. Overall, the raid should take kind of anywhere between hour and a half. It'd be great to get it below an hour and a half, but there's kind of, you're limited by the time it takes to do the trash waves. But if you guys have any questions about anything, feel free to reach out to me or any of the other officers directly. I'll link this sheet in this YouTube channel into the description, and it will also be in the tier 6 strats channel. And then the last keyword for verification is Spooktober. Thanks for watching. If you're new to joining us, we look forward to raiding with you. If you're one of the oldies but goodies, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. We really appreciate it. We want to make sure we don't have to spend too much of our kind of prime time getting people up to speed. We want to make sure that we can have the same expectations for new players that are coming in, that, you know, they at least have heard this and know the fights in even a quick kind of overview.